You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
My heart is ready, but my body is weak.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from this past week, as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms like iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeart, Podbay, and Speaker. And also mentioning, we are being streamed at the Chairshot.com. So thank you so much for listening. Yeah. However you listen to this show. My name is Miranda Morales. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and I'm going to bring in the rest of this team. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how's it going?
Oh, it's going fantastic. How's it going for you, Miranda?
Good, good. How are you feeling? I know last week we had mentioned you were kind of under the weather.
Yeah, doing quite a bit better now, hopefully, so...
Good.
I hope that keeps the same velocity, so we'll see.
Yes, Velocity. I remember that show.
Shh, yes. We're not supposed to remember those things.
We're so not. And the third member of this trio is who?
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 It is the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
Yay! How we doing, guys?
Doing well. I mean, it is a busy week. If you have to, I don't even think it's living under a rock. I don't think it's even living on another planet. You know, it has to be like you have to be in the middle of outer space to not know that it is WrestleMania week. And yes, week, not just weekend, week.
Week.
Because we have tons and tons of WWE content throughout this entire week that culminates with WrestleMania, a 2-night event, Saturday and Sunday. And one of the kind of more special parts of WrestleMania week is the Hall of Fame. And this year it was a very interesting concept because it was 2 years put into one ceremony. You had the inductees from 2020 and inductees from 2021 all on one show. You had the first half of 2020, and then the second half 2021. And that too was a cool concept, but also made you remember, man, I forgot who was actually part of the 2020 class, because it wasn't until the ceremony where I realized, oh my gosh, I forgot that this, person was going to be inducted. Really, the one that I had for shame forgot was Jushin Thunder Liger. I remember he was announced last year, right before WrestleMania 37, and unfortunately with the pandemic, the ceremony, the Hall of Fame, did not occur, but he had a great speech. He did it via satellite, and he was in his legendary masks, all dressed to the nines, and it was still a very cool moment to watch that.
Yeah, it really was. It's always exciting to see Jushin Thunder Liger, no matter what. But it's especially in a WWE context, it's very rare. Yeah. And so it was really exciting to see him there and to see them recognize him.
I mean, I was excited when they announced it, and definitely was excited that, he got the recognition. I didn't see the ceremony yet. There was way too much stuff to watch this week.
Fair enough.
Did he wear the classic suit with the mask look?
Yes.
That's
tuxedo
what I want.
With the mask.
Tuxedo.
Yes.
Yep.
Boom. Money.
Yes. It
looks amazing.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's a contrast in style, but when you see it, like, it's perfectly him. So,
great.
yeah. And then we also had John Bradshaw Layfield, JBL, be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And one of the big notes from his speech is how much he credited Eddie Guerrero for the character of JBL getting over and the influence he had in his career. And so that, for a lot of Lucha Libre fans, was a really nice, just kind of tribute and acknowledgement of, I mean, the Eddie JBL feud, you know, I mean, especially with JBL turning into, you know, John Bradshaw Layfield, that whole pretty silly and fairly racist character of, you know, being this, you know, illegal alien catcher type of thing. But it was, you know, it was good, you know, again, as many of us are Eddie Guerrero fans, anytime that he gets acknowledged, but especially for someone like JBL who had a history with him, acknowledge him. That was really cool to see in his speech. And then speaking of, we had Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio on the red carpet do a little interview putting over Rob Van Dam, who is a 2021 inductee.
Which is also crazy, but I'm not mad about it.
Crazy that that Rob Van Dam is inducted?
Yeah, I mean, so early. Let's just, I mean.
Yeah, that's true. I think, though, you're getting to a point where they induct so many people every year that eventually the well is going to start coming up closer and closer to shallow water, as they say. I mean, they had the Great Khali inducted. And so that would have been the one I was like, how is this happening?
I mean, similar thoughts. I thought it was, I mean, he's definitely worthy of it. He helped really make the WWE even more global. But, you know, it's early. He still wrestles once in a while.
Yeah, Khali still wrestles. But you're right. I think everyone gets inducted for their own reasons. I think Rob Van Dam was the most successful ECW alumni. Like once ECW folded, because of course you have Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho that all came from ECW. But, you know, of the people who were with ECW when the company closed, Rob Van Dam was the most successful. And I think he did bring in that ECW fan base to WWE. So, and the legendary career, I mean, everybody remembers the 2006 One Night Stand against John Cena. I mean, that was just magic. And I mean, multiple Money in the Bank matches. I mean, his name really became infamous with those high profile matches. And so I think, you know, I agree it's too soon because, you know, Rob Van Dam just left Impact Wrestling and he still wrestles every so often, but WWE, you know, the well's coming up dry soon.
That's harder and harder to find guys with no contract.
He's got a lot of gas. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of gas left in the tank, especially when you compare it to like an Undertaker career or even Sabu, who was his running mate back in the day, right? Like, you know, there's a lot more that can. So that's why I said it was crazy. But
no, very true, very very true. I absolutely agree with you there. So, but you know, it was a great Hall of Fame ceremony. Everyone should go check it out. Is it on Peacock? Now I'm getting confused about what's on Peacock and what isn't.
It's on Peacock. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
That's how I saw it, at least. So yeah.
Yes. Yes, and this is also the week of Peacock. It is now kind of the first full initial week of, you know, content being on Peacock. We'll talk about that in a little bit with NXT Takeover. But, you know, if you want your WWE content, you gotta download Peacock. So, hey, we will continue to see what happens, but we'll go more into WrestleMania a week later on with WWE news and NXT. But let's just kick off this show with the road back to shows with Brendan.
Heck yeah. Road back to shows. Okay, so trivia for you guys. Mexico City is what color right now?
Pink.
Dusky blue.
If Cassandro has his way.
You know what? That's a world I would want to live in.
Yes,
right? I wouldn't be upset about it at all, but no.
Be upset about it for all. See, when is Cassandra going to run for public office? Like, he would avoid all this, like, no mask, or mask situation. And we already know what his real name is, so, like, when are we going to see this? Because I would be in fully support.
It's
Sorry.
a good suggestion. I still support almost any luchador. Like, there are a few that probably not a good idea, but I'm not going to name names. But Cassandro, not one of them. I would love to see Cassandro
for presidente.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, straight to the top.
Yeah. Hello. Have you seen him? Like, his barb is not just meant for mayorship.
Yeah.
All right.
He gets his stuff from Paris. Did you know that? So, don't know if you listened to that interview with Denise Salcedo, but like,
that's awesome.
Yes, he gets his stuff from Europe. So,
now, he also said in that interview that he was borrowing stuff from his mother and his sister at the beginning.
Well, that's true, but that was back in the day, and now he's a leyenda. I mean, he is a legend of Lucha Libre, for God's sake. So,
right?
Only the best for him.
Yeah, I'm just throwing stories in there so that anybody who hasn't heard the interview might get curious and go listen. Right?
So, all right, Best City
it's still orange.
Orange.
Okay. Very orange.
Still orange.
Probably gonna stay that way for a while. Hopefully it goes down instead of back up. But, that's where we're at. We're gonna maybe see shows sometime in the future with audiences, because that's what people are doing these days. And anyway, before I get myself all worked up, we had a little more on the Blue Demon show. Moxie 88, the production company behind the Disney Channel series Ultraviolet and Blue Demon, is taking Maria Eugenia Esponda to EVP development and the new role. So she's going to be a new EVP. She's going to oversee Moxie's slate of film and TV projects, leading the company's outreach to potential collaborators, keying on highlighting diverse voices. So they're trying to get more programming that is not just for white picket fence neighborhoods with 2.5 kids. Additionally, Esponda will be tasked with creating a bridge between film and TV production in Mexico and Latin America. So we may see more stuff coming north, more of the unique South American and Mexican programming coming north, which is kind of an exciting concept. They've got some really interesting shows that could really do well in the United States in this kind of madcap, we must have more entertaining and zany personality sort of time that we live in now. So I'm excited about that, but I'm also excited that someone who's working on a Lucha Libre show is getting this level of power, because we need more Lucha content up here in the United States.
And it's just good representation, So, I mean, you get to actually see people within, the Latino community have those roles, and be in those positions to then be able to exactly that, produce and, provide more Lucha content, more Latino content.
To use it again, more diverse content, because it's gonna be, it's unique and it's always good stuff. That's congratulations to Maria on that. That sounds great, and I look forward to all of your projects being massively successful in my household, because I'm going to be watching the heck out of all of it.
Yeah.
In other kind of fun, good news, Bandito went viral this week, where he posted some footage with Bandito and a handful of other wrestlers assisting people at a vaccination clinic. It would seem to be mostly elderly or medically challenged people. There was a lot of wheelchairs, and it was absolutely adorable to see them like interacting with these people as they were getting the vaccines. They were, having a great time. They were doing it all in masks. They, did all have their shirts on, so it wasn't, full gear, but, it looked good and it was fun. Yeah, Dusty saw it. It was really fun.
Really cool. Yeah, it was just, so cool to see them out there and helping the community. And, it's cool. Especially because we also saw Bandito earlier in the subway videos with the masks and everything. So it really shows how much he cares for the community and how much they are excited to see him. And it's awesome. Yeah.
That has been a thing that has been very true of luchadors throughout the lockdown period. We've seen them doing things this whole time within the community, and it's one of the reasons that I gravitate more towards this. We saw Pagano several times doing things. We've seen Phantasma handing out lunches to people. We've seen, wrestlers promoting mask wearing by fake chopping people who aren't wearing their masks. And they're just very involved in doing their part and using their platform to do it, which is just really always fun. But I really enjoyed this because I'm not going to name names of any specific one, but more American wrestlers, it might feel more like a press opportunity, but this just felt like they were doing a thing and happened to get filmed. So it was very cool to see that. And then my last thing for the road back to shows is MLW is going to be doing another marathon series of filming. The date that I was given by someone on this show is July 10th in Philadelphia. So, exciting to have MLW, who's consistently doing great product and usually very representative with the luchadors, back to filming. They tend to shoot a lot of episodes all at once. So, hopefully they have ways of, they've been doing fairly safe processing with this, but yeah.
The big news is that this will be open to crowds. So right now they've been just filming, without an audience, but this is right now planned to be the first show in which they will welcome back fans. So I think
that's exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is going to just be big. I mean, you're right as far as using that for future episodes of Fusion, or unless they do decide to make this like a special event. But right now it's speculated or likely that it's just going to be used to film future episodes of Fusion. But yeah, MLW allowing fans back and doing shows in front of a live audience again.
And it's going to be a Philly crowd, so they'll be very energetic.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We haven't seen any really of the other major promotions do it in front of a live audience outside. Yep. I mean, really the only ones I could think of off the top of my head is NXT.
And then we'll see fans for the first time at WrestleMania for the WWE. So they're slowly creeping into it, but MLW doing it is for me a tiny bit more exciting than the WWE doing it, but we can talk about that later in this show. So that's my road back to shows. I'm just going to jump right into my indie roundup because there's not a lot going on. You did mention this is WrestleMania week, and another big thing that happens on WrestleMania week is a lot of indie promotions go to whatever city WrestleMania is happening in, and round about Wednesday or Tuesday, shows start popping up in small venues. And even though this is still a COVID year, we still had a bunch of matches that were announced, and I'd like to thank Cubs Fan for succinctly finding most of the Lucha related ones. So Cubs Fan over on Lucha Blog did the work for me here. I'm not going to take credit for this, but we do have some matches that are going to be happening here. So On Thursday, GCW is going to have, on Fight TV, they're going to have, Gino Medina versus Hijo de Canis Lupus. Some footage of a match between them is already going around, and it's fantastic. So,
yeah,
if this is that same match, that's great. If it's a rematch, that's even better.
Yeah.
Also on Thursday, another GCW for the Acid Cup, which is a tournament. You're going to have Aries versus Aramis. That's Aries the luchador, not Aries the American wrestler that was in ROH and NXT.
Not the Austin kind, just the
not the Austin, just Aries with a Z. Laredo Kid versus Braden Lee, and Dragonbane versus KTB, and it is a tournament, so if any of them win, they will then continue on in the tournament, which will be going all weekend. So that Friday, you'll have more chance to see that. This is also going to be on Fight TV. That's GCW, the Acid Cup. And then GCW again is going to give us spring break on Friday, and this has advertised Gringo Loco, Black Taurus, Aries, Laredo Kid, Dragonbane, Aramis, and then so there you go. You've got big names. First one that weekend that so far in this listing that has Black Taurus, well, the rest of those names you kind of see sneaking around there. So another big one on Friday. That's 7 p.m. GCW Spring Break, also on Fight. And then, Violence X Suffering, still on Fight. You have Jack Evans versus Tony Deppen. So, first off, this is amazing to me because it's Jack Evans you see on AEW and it's Tony Deppen you see on ROH. But also, it's two guys who have, they've had very similar career paths. They're the young, small guys who had to find a way to stand out in the roster. So I think this one has the potential to be a really big story. We'll see how that happens and how that plays out, but that's what you got going into WrestleMania weekend. Since this show goes up on the weekend, a lot of this may have already happened, but replays should all be available since they're on Fight. And that's what I decided to focus on this week. But once again, I would like to point out that the Indie Roundup is a sort of a cooperative thing here. If you guys are promoting your shows, especially if you did a show on WrestleMania week and you've got lucha talent, please tell me about it. Send me results. Send me footage. I will do my very best to cover it as in depth as I can. But I will at least shout you out for sending me a message. So come on, guys. I would love to cover all of your WrestleMania week stuff or anything. I'm not going to just cover limited to that. If you've got a lucha-related indie show that you want me to see, promote it, just fire it away. That's I say it every week, and I love to have you guys interact with me. I've had a couple people send me stuff in the past, and it's paid off big time for me. So I more indie lucha that I get to see, the better. But that's it for the Indie Roundup this week. Go watch some of the massive amounts of WrestleMania week stuff that's going on, please.
Yes, this is a big change from last year where a lot of independent shows, pretty much all of them, canceled, and were not able to run. So not only is this a resurgence and a welcome back for WWE, but it's also a welcome back for independent promotions that run during WrestleMania weekend for the independent wrestlers who wrestle during this weekend. And it feels good. I think it just, as a fan, it feels good to see, that whole ecosystem of wrestling happen again.
Yeah, my wrestling Twitter has been so much more positive this whole week. Lots of big congratulations, lots of people that I hadn't seen posting anything about being in matches finally posting match results or pictures before or after the match. This is really great times. I'm starting to feel more like wrestling is happening again.
Well, thank you, Brendan, for both the road back to shows and the indie roundup. Next, we're going to kick it to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mass, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's WrestleBoss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
A big thank you to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central, letting us know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. I do want to give a big shout out to the team at Masks, Mats, and Mayhem. They did exactly what we thought we were going to hear from them when we talked about the Azteca Underground, Lucha Underground resurgence rumors. So, and that was totally unplanned. But they do talk about it because, of course, and that's why we said, especially, I know Brendan specifically said, if there's anything happening with Lucha Underground, the team at Mass, Mats, and Mayhem will know about it. So it was awesome to hear that they covered it in this week's episode. So make sure you check it out along with the other podcasts on the Lucha Central Podcast Network. But you know what? We're going to keep on rolling. Dusty's going to bring us this week in WWE.
Yeah, so this week for WWE, I'm going to flip the script a little. We'll start with Monday Night Raw. And on Monday Night Raw, after arriving in a roughly $2.9 million US Bugatti car, Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, they showed up. They looked like money. It was amazing. But Miz and John Morrison insulted him. They painted his car. They wrote, "Hey, hey, hop, hop" on the hood. Bad Bunny came out and had a promo, said that he used to respect The Miz, but The Miz doesn't respect him. And it was announced that instead of a singles match, we were getting what they should have announced all along, and it's now a tag match, adding in Morrison and Damian Priest. But why wait this long?
The only reason I think why is that maybe they wanted to have that press coverage with just Bad Bunny in the match for a few weeks, and then add on Damian Priest. So maybe just the tag match wouldn't have made the rounds as well as it did, compared to Bad Bunny being in a singles match. That's my theory.
That's a strong theory.
Yeah, I like
very strong theory. I just am making the frustrated noises because I had just gotten my head wrapped around it being a singles match. And
I know.
Just I was ready for it, and then they changed it to the tag match that we all thought it was going to be weeks ago, and I'm like, but I just. Can you stop playing with my toys?
It felt underwhelming to pay off, the announcement of the tag edition. Yeah, it was just
it was missing the Teddy Long flavor at that point.
Yeah. Gonna go 1-on-1 with the Bad Bunny, player.
Gonna make it a tag team match.
There it is. There it is. Oh, you four want to play.
But
we miss Teddy.
Oh, I love Teddy.
Always.
But we also, SmackDown, there have been very strong rumors within the online fan base this week that on this week's Friday Night SmackDown, April 9th, Rey and Dominic pick up a tag title win in the Fatal 4-Way Championship match. This was a pre-taped show with a Thunderdome audience, and that's where the rumors are coming from. I obviously couldn't confirm or deny it by recording time, but I wanted to note it for those of us that, would like to finally see WWE do something with Rey and Dominic. Mm-hmm. But it's also WWE, so it's rumored that they're using SmackDown as the pre-show, and that the Mysterios, or at least the SmackDown tag titles, will not be appearing at WrestleMania.
They are absolutely using it as the pre-show. They've already announced the Andre the Giant Battle Royal is going to be on SmackDown. So, apparently it's Peacock does not want to have 5 hours of WWE live programming on one day. So, it makes sense. But that means this is the weird part, and this is where the pre-show always was weird. That means that if this really is meant to be like a mini WrestleMania moment, it will not be on the DVD or the historic lookbacks at WrestleMania because it happened on their pre-show instead.
Right. It'll be interesting to see. And that kind of leads us into our WrestleMania preview. So they've changed the format of this week's SmackDown to be the WrestleMania SmackDown. And even though they didn't announce it as the pre-show, like we've mentioned, it's the pre-show. The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale. This is probably going to be our best chance of the weekend to see the Luchadors signed with WWE. Firstly, there's a chance to see the face-off between all three members of Lucha House Party. That's really exciting. But we also have Angel Garza, Humberto Carrillo, and Ricochet in the mix. So that adds a lot to the Lucha quotient of the match. The math comes out to about 30% of the entrants being luchadors in the match. So, maybe WWE could do something and surprise us, do something really interesting, have a luchador win. And, the numbers look good. Hopefully.
Statistically, yes, because of how many are in there, but I don't know.
I just had the weirdest thought process in my head on this, which was that you wouldn't expect a luchador to win the Andre the Giant battle because that's supposed to be about Andre's big man legacy. And he went undefeated for years in battle royals. You could always, despite what the Fox TV show will tell you, Andre the Giant did not lose battle royals.
No.
But because WWE has been so bad/good about subverting expectations, maybe they'll let a little man win this year. That'd be hilarious.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do we know all the entrants in it, or have they
Yes,
just...
all 20 have been announced. I don't have the full list at hand, but like I said, the full Luchador list is Kalisto, Gran Metalik, Lince Dorado, Angel Garza, Humberto Carrillo, and Ricochet.
So our NXT call-up is not a luchador.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, at least so far. I mean, they announced 20 entrants, and that's probably how many they'll have, but it's WWE, so you never know. And speaking of weird things WWE does, there is no solid news on the plans yet, but WWE President Nick Khan was interviewed this week and said that WWE now has a hyper focus on Latin America and especially Mexico, and specifically mentioned that they want to bring WWE production values and money to Lucha Libre by starting their own company in Mexico. They didn't want to buy or work with AAA or CMLL. They wanted to do their own thing.
I call lies on that. They totally wanted to buy both of those companies.
Is that kind of where maybe the rumors of an NXT Latin America at one point possibly?
I would assume, yes.
Maybe came about?
Yeah. I'm sure that's what it started with, is they wanted to focus on breaking that market, but just like with Japan, it sounds like they went after big name companies and didn't get the results they wanted, so now they're going to try and just build their own promotion, which may work better in Mexico because they love American money.
Yeah, it's true. And Andrade had something to say about that on Twitter.
Yeah.
He said, and I quote, "More talent for sitting in the locker room."
Who says he can't speak English? Oh my God.
Right? Like, how is it that you have these plans to try and create a Lucha Libre brand and you have one of the most famous luchadors, on your roster, and you still don't have any plans for him?
Well, and then like a small handful of other really talented ones that could carry that. Like, I mean, Garza should be going nowhere but up right now, and the fact that I'm saying his name and people listening to this are probably trying to remember which one he is should tell you something.
He's the one who cut his hair for a storyline that didn't happen.
Yeah. He's the one that, takes off his pants and it has, all of the charm going on, and they can't find a good angle for him, really?
No,
yeah.
They had those weird vignettes with Garza where he would talk to the lady and hold the rose, kind of like the Continental from Saturday Night Live. And it was really strange.
Oh, you're so right. Sorry,
that
took me back.
Yeah.
Would you care for some champagne?
See, and that's perfect for Garza. That is so good for him. And that was kind of interesting. And then it just kind of faded away. And I'm baffled at what the Lucha House Party, Kalisto. Where is Kalisto? I know we get to see quite a bit of Lince and Gran Metalik, but Kalisto, he can speak English. He's an amazing all-around talent. So many of these guys, they have nothing for, and I don't know if they're kind of hanging on to them until they can get something in Mexico, and they're going to try to use them to help build up what they've got. I'm baffled that they're...
and it sounds like it's more luchadors that I'm going to love that I'm not going to get to see on TV. So it just almost makes me angry.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with it. WWE, they mentioned this over Japan, the Mexico thing. So they seem fairly motivated. And his exact words were, "We are hyper-focused on Mexico." And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens in the near future. When I was there a few years ago and I tried to talk about Lucha Libre with people, everybody wanted to talk about John Cena. They have luchadors, but let's talk about John Cena. And so WWE is big in Mexico, and the name means a lot to people, like to fans in Mexico. So it's interesting to see what will come of this. I'm excited, and my deepest impulses are optimistic, but it's WWE, and how can you be that optimistic about it? So, yeah, we'll see.
I've been kicked too many times, WWE.
And that kind of naturally leads us into our AEW segment. And, this week was kind of interesting. Not a ton of Lucha content, but there was still a lot of great stuff. First up on Dark Elevation, we had our highlight match. And this week it was Danny Limelight versus 10 from the Dark Order. This was a great match with a lot of psychology. I especially liked the way Danny Limelight continued to work 10's arm and tried to keep the momentum in his favor, but it just didn't work out. He was just largely overpowered by 10. Danny Limelight is still on his way up, even though he had the loss on this match, but with a lot of momentum behind 10 right now, it made for an interesting match and was really a great example of how somebody can look really good even when they lose. Like, this is... they both came out better for this match. Excellent. And, I also want to give a shout out to Britt Baker. She had a match with Alex Gracia. It was a very quick squash match, but her heel work is fantastic. It gets better every week, and it was so good. I just had to mention that. And then we have Tuesday Night Dark. And our highlight match for Dark was the main event between TH2 and Bear Country. This was a really nice clash of the two styles. Bear Country were just trying to use their brute strength to their advantage, and TH2 tried to counter with more technical and submission and just TH2 style work. But eventually strength won out in the end, and Bear Country picked up the win and some momentum before facing Jurassic Express on Dynamite. And I kind of wish I hadn't mentioned Bear Country versus Jurassic Express on Dynamite, but here we are. This match was not good. Like, it wasn't the worst match I've ever seen, but it was incredibly sloppy, and it just completely shattered my suspension of disbelief. I don't know what the issues were, but the pacing, the rhythm, nothing ever really caught on. And finally, Luchasaurus got the win for Jurassic Express with a choke slam and a standing moonsault. But again, this match was not for me. And it's a shame that it was really our only Lucha-centric match this week because it was a real dud. But after that, we had Death Triangle show up. Pac is back. He's with Ray and Penta, and they were being interviewed by Tony about how next week they get a tag team championship match. And we have Best Friends come out. Orange interrupts and says it's nice to see them together again. And then we get a clip of when Death Triangle tried to turn Orange Cassidy into a ghost at last year's AEW Revolution. And then on Dynamite last year when they attacked him again. They remember what Death Triangle did, but Pac thinks they're just trying to get clout towards their own run at the Tag Team Championships because they're not worthy on their own. And Trent agrees and says that they need to work their way up, but they want to remind Death Triangle that the boys are back in town, and now they've got an alien with them. And it sets up a future feud. I'm excited for it. I believe we're still owed a street fight between the Best Friends and Lucha Bros. Santana and Ortiz stepped into that role last year, but I really want that street fight, and I hope that's what we're building to. That's kind of the natural lead in, right? Like, it's got to be what we're headed for, hopefully.
No, it'll change in 3 weeks. This is the new. The AEW is going down that path with me too, where they're going hot and cold, and they're building people. I mentioned this off the air, but I'll bring it. You had Lance Archer make a promo about it. Like, they bring me up and then I disappear, and then they bring me back up and I disappear, and that's what they're doing with everybody. So I mean, like, that this Best Friends thing that we might be building to may not happen. Somebody may get hurt again, or they may decide that Best Friends need to have a rematch with Miro for whatever reason, and it goes sidetracked again. And I'm just getting more and more frustrated with the inconsistency of the usage of most people in AEW, not just luchadors. Yes. It's a problem all throughout the promotion right now.
Yeah.
Well, and there were so many wrestlers on the show last night.
Yes.
You know, I mean, 72, I believe. And
it's the number that was going around.
Yeah, I mean, like, how do you, I mean, and like, to the casual fan, the person that doesn't watch often, they tune in and see all these people. It has to be overwhelming. Like, think about what they're doing with Kenny Omega. If you didn't watch New Japan 7 years ago, you don't really know much of what's going on with the story. I mean, they just assume that we all know that. And so it's really a strange time story-wise right now in AEW with trying to cram as many people in as they can. Now they've got this thing with Impact. It doesn't ever benefit Impact, it seems. And
it doesn't.
It just adds more people to the AEW roster. And I mean, I love Thunder Rosa. Her work in AEW has been incredible, but I mean, like, she doesn't even work for them.
I was going to say, she's the exception to the rule as far as like one of the few people who have been elevated through their programs. Like her and Britt Baker have been now the highlights of the women's division. But now a lot of the issues that we've seen in the women's division is trickling into all of these other areas of AEW. And they also seem, because of the fact, and I don't know whether one is causing the other, that maybe they want to have all these factions so they bring on more people, or they have all these people and they don't know what to do with them but put them in a faction. But I feel like you're diluting the waters and nothing feels that special anymore because you see so much of it. You know, factions feel like they're losing their flair and their importance because literally everyone is in a faction.
And they're bringing a new one out every week.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or adding somebody to an existing one. I mean, we saw that with Taz trying to recruit Christian, and I mean, like, it's just strange. I mean, like the way that they, posit everybody and use everybody. But also, speaking of a lot of guys on screen at once, we had the Inner Circle reforming and seemingly turning face and laying it down to Pinnacle that on Wednesday, May the 5th, El Cinco de Mayo, we are going to have a 5-on-5 blood and guts match between Jericho's Inner Circle and MJF's Pinnacle. Last year, you may recall that the highlights of the Stadium Stampede for many people were basically Sammy's entire existence in the match and Santana and Ortiz's work with Matt Hardy. We also had Santana and Ortiz in the amazing street fight match with Best Friends. And I think, again, this year that these are going to be the three most important guys to watch in this match. I mean, there's going to be a lot of action going on 5-on-5. But I truly think that Sammy, Santana, and Ortiz are going to be the stars of the match just based on their previous work.
Well, we've seen over and over again that Sammy is the guy that seems to step up when they give him these big opportunities, and Santana and Ortiz aren't far behind on that. But it's just hard
They're really like the best men's tag team in AEW. They just never get the chance to show it off.
Yeah, that's a mistake too, but
and it's just be like there's so many things they could do there with them, and it's been so long. They had all the I don't know. There's just been a lot with AEW going on lately. But we can look forward to next week. We are getting a tag team championship match between not the entire Death Triangle, but Pac and Rey Fenix and the Young Bucks. And so that's kind of interesting. Hopefully it leads into something. The Bucks have recently turned heel, so it's, again on Twitter, I guess.
So that brings back more consistency issues, though, because Death Triangle is working heel against the Best Friends.
Yeah.
So where are the fans divided? Where's the fans' divided attention supposed to be at right now? And it just which means we're probably going to see a Schmaz angle, or Death Triangle is going to be pseudo face and it won't be an interesting match. And we're getting to this point where I'm to the WWE level of frustration. If you have a roster this good, do something with it instead of just kind of dinking around and, seeing what sticks.
Yeah, that's honestly one of my biggest complaints with AEW is that they kind of dab something at you to see if you like it, and you're like, oh, that might be interesting. But if it doesn't really click, they're on to the next thing. I mean, the whole thing between Cody and Penta, I mean, like, that looked like it was going to be serious. Like, they really had a lot of fighting work, and then they just dropped it. And, went nowhere. So it's really frustrating what's going on. This was one of the most frustrating episodes of Dynamite for me in a long time. And
it's just, things just became very apparent, like you said, with so much happening, and maybe that they're still growing some storylines, but it just seems like you don't see a clear direction with a lot of things. And again, it's almost like a copy and paste for me. Like, I said this off the air, I feel like QT Marshall having his own faction now is jumping the shark.
Yes.
Like, literally, like, I think they still needed some more time to build up QT and that whole dynamic with the Nightmare family before giving him his own faction. But, like, we've seen the Brian Hardy family now with new members. You still have the Elite, or, whatever they call themselves, the inner circle is now recalibrated. Even things like the Death Triangle. There's just so much. I feel like you're losing the importance of factions. Well, the one thing that's made them so unique is that not everyone is in one, but I feel like in AEW, that's the problem. Everyone is in a faction.
Yeah, you're aligned with somebody one way or another.
Yeah, you have, Taz's like, you just have so much. And, like, ultimately, what is this leading to? What are the points of all these factions?
Well, sorry, there's, as you were talking about that, I was realizing there's different types of factions going on here too, because, the Nightmare family and the FTW collective are about training dojos, and they would, if you had more factions like that, you could have interesting things. But you have the Dark Order, which is about misfit wrestlers finding a place to belong, and what's up with that. And the Death Triangle was originally supposed to be really good international wrestlers trying to tightly align so they could push further up the card, and nothing's happening there. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. It's a good point, because, like, you make it all make sense, but that's not what is portrayed on TV. So I feel like there was more definition as to who these are. I mean, essentially, if we're not getting a wrestling version of the Warriors in some kind of pay-per-view, then what are we doing?
But that's kind of where I was going with it. They're all doing different things. If it was all about who you train with, you could have the Warriors like that, because you could, we train Lucha Libre, so we're going to fight these guys that do comedy style because they're not luchadors, right? That's a good story.
You're describing what's happening in Ring of Honor that's actually really good now. You have...
you're right. Damn it, I am.
Now we're telling AEW, watch what Ring of Honor's doing, and just do that. Just do what Ring of Honor's doing, AEW. Because that's almost what it is at this point, too.
Yeah.
Ring of Honor now has, the pure teams. Of course, you have your Lucha Libre teams, and now you have this kind of hybrid faction now. Forget what the name of the new faction is, but, that's enough, too. AEW is knowing how to kind of balance it all. I mean, Ring of Honor is knowing how to tell story with it as well. So
Yeah, and now that it's come out, that I must have been subtly thinking about it. I promise you that's not what I was thinking of.
But that's okay, because that's almost like that's how Ring of Honor is being more successful, because it's defined. It's almost like exactly what I'm just joking about. AEW, watch some Ring of Honor, get a little bit more direction, and try again.
It's a narrative, and it flows. It makes me want to tune in each week like, I am excited to watch ROH each week to see how they're developing any of those storylines, including the Mexa Squad breakup, like we were talking about last week. Like that faction breaking up is more interesting to me than AEW introducing a new faction each week. So,
well, I mean, you can get the results for all the shows that we just talked about: Raw, SmackDown, AEW on LuchaCentral.com. But up next, we have a Masked Republic. Well, some updates regarding Masked Republic, not going to say promotions, but Masked Republic related events, and some products. The big update is that Expo Lucha announcement came out this week that Expo Lucha, the non-virtual version that was scheduled for Philadelphia this June, has been postponed until 2022. So we are not going to get a live Expo Lucha until next summer.
So Lizzie has to wait a whole...
Is QuickBooks slowing your business down? Do you have challenges managing inventory, project profitability, or just getting paid fast enough? Get your business to a better place and graduate to NetSuite today. Stop paying for multiple systems that don't give you the information you need when you need it. Ditch the spreadsheets and all the old software you've outgrown. Now is the time to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. NetSuite gives you visibility and control over your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more. Everything you need, all in one place, instantaneously. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions in revenue, save time and money with NetSuite.
Join the over 24,000 companies using NetSuite right now. Let NetSuite show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/info. Schedule your free product tour right now at netsuite.com/info, netsuite.com/info.
Full year to go on her date.
Wow, that's a long time to wait for a date, but you are correct. She would have to wait a whole year for her date with Mr. Iguana. So, hopefully, she holds out. I don't know. I don't think she should wait. She should go on and move on with her life, like do her. She can't wait forever for Mr. Iguana.
Right? Yeah.
But that means we all have to wait another year before we can see some live Lucha Libre, in part to Expo Lucha. So there is an announcement made by Masked Republic on all of their social medias and on the Expo Lucha website, with information as to, why the details, which, encompasses everything from, social distancing measures to visa issues and travel restrictions. So there's still, even though we are on the mend and we are getting into this new space, almost not post-pandemic, clearly, but, we're, getting better. There's still a lot of challenges, that any live event faces in order to run.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
It really felt like with that announcement, I appreciate Kevin's willingness to put all of the factors on the line and give us that really in-depth peek behind the curtain. It just felt like it was too many bricks or too many straws on the camel. Like it was no one thing, but there were so many little things that it just didn't feel like it was the right choice to try and go forward. And I fully support it when the way he spelled it out.
So everyone will have to wait just one more year until the next Expo Live Lucha event, another live event. But I'm sure we're going to get another virtual event or two in the meantime.
I hope so.
Yeah. And no dates have been announced, but keeping my fingers crossed. Also, in some other pretty exciting news, Lucha Masks has released a new RVD mask.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And very RVD. If you know his style, it definitely looks like his style. It's got the yin-yangs.
I was going to say, it's not an RVD style if it doesn't have the yin-yangs. So I wasn't going to trust it, but as soon as you said it, I said, all right.
Yes. That was the big thing I remember from his early days was he had all of those hand-painted sets, and the mask makes me, it's very reminiscent of those.
It is, absolutely.
So, yeah.
We'll go to lucha-mask.com to see the new RVD mask and lots of other fantastic masks that you can purchase. And again, these are in limited quantity. So many times once they sell out, they're gone for good. So make sure you go to lucha-masks.com. Also, just Mask Republic, all of the usual content and items related to Mask Republic are all available online. So make sure if you're looking for some awesome Lucha Libre merchandise, you check out Mask Republic. All right, so I feel like I'm getting into my happy place now because we're talking about NXT. And we knew this was going to happen because for, some of the complaints that we had about AEW, I think the consensus so far, I haven't even gotten asked for a consensus, but I'm just guessing the consensus is that we were all pretty happy with nights 1 and nights 2 of Stand and Deliver. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. The small nitpicks as always, but I mean, overall, awesome show.
Well, let's get into it because there were, all the matches were great in their own merits. And of course, some were better than others. But let's get into it as far as the Lucha Libre content. And with night 1, we had the NXT Tag Team Championships, on the line. They were vacated, when, the previous champions, Oni Lorcan and, I keep forgetting. Danny Burch. Yes. Had to vacate the titles due to injury. So the top 3 contenders for the championships were in a triple threat match. Of course, MSK, who won the opportunity for an NXT tag team title match by winning the Dusty Classic. Of course, you also had the Grizzled Young Veterans and Legado del Fantasma. And, this is going to be kind of a different format as far as, hitting some highlights and then, talking about it as a trio because we all watched Takeover and I know we all have thoughts about it. So the first match for me was a go from the start with everyone kind of just flying around throughout the entire match. But starting off in the beginning, I really love both Joaquin Wilde and Roman Mendoza's simultaneous dives outside of the ring.
Yes, that was incredible.
Really, really good timing. But I love Carter and Wes. I mean, I'm so happy for them that they did end up winning this. Seeing them as the Rascals in Impact and then coming to NXT. Not only to win the Dusty Cup, but the tag titles is very, very fitting. But I thought this was also a great showcase for Legado del Fantasma, and even Grizzled Young Vets. These were kind of the wild cards because you knew with MSK and Legado del Fantasma, they were very much in that high flying style, but Grizzled Young Vets with the British Strong style were able to kind of slow the pace a bit more. But your thoughts on this match, guys, and kind of the end result, and what you think this also may mean for Legado del Fantasma?
I loved the match. I want to shout out the mask at the beginning. Joaquin Wilde's mask. Yeah, it was very cool. Very, very Titan. Kind of mixed with King from Tekken, but it worked. I loved it. And like Lucha Blog, again, we'll mention him. He said, everybody in Lucha Libre borrows from somebody. and so, that's just the way it is. And, it was awesome. The match was amazing. I really wanted Legado del Fantasma to win. But like you mentioned, having seen the Rascals and Impact and then now, I wasn't mad about it. I was really excited. Great match. And usually when you have these triple threat matches, especially in a tag team scenario, you see two guys at a time or one team at a time, or face off each other. But these guys were really constantly in the mix one way or another, and it was just a more dynamic triple threat than we normally get. And I was really impressed with that.
I tell you, I was mad about it because not only did I not only did I predict that Legado del Fantasma was going to win and we could have a little bit of a faction going, but I also thought that it would be better for Miranda's team to chase for a little while, because they're already popular and they're over. I thought, giving them the belt means that there's not a lot left for them to do already. That's madness. But had Legado del Fantasma used their usual tactics and won, then you could have gotten a rematch, and you could have done a lot with that, and both teams would have gotten elevated. So I don't know what's going to happen with them now, but it's NXT, so it's not going to be awful.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, and I mean, this does leave. So I understand exactly what you mean as far as chasing gold. That MSK really came in as an underdog in the Dusty Classic, and even after the short injury to Wes Lee, that you weren't quite sure if they could do it. But I also think that's kind of part of the allure of bringing them in. They were a pretty high profile name to bring in their class. And so I'm sure there was this element of wanting to see the payoff right away. Because at the end of the day too, they have the potential to move up. I could absolutely see them on SmackDown, even on Monday Night Raw. Do I want them to? No, because just don't do it. Don't do it. I will always point to that movie, that point in Billy Madison when he comes back, Billy comes back to the third grade and the kid tells him, I can't wait to grow up. I can't wait to go to high school. And Billy just grabs his face and says, don't you ever say that. Don't you dare ever say that. I feel like that's somewhat of the same with NXT and Raw and SmackDown. Don't you dare want to leave. But it's very possible. So, but it still sets up, a good potential for the future. You could still see Grizzled Young Vets and Legado still fight over number one contendership. You could still see Legado win.
I will be hugely shocked if they don't win in the near future. But
absolutely,
I agree. And then we had the main event of night one, Io Shirai versus Raquel Gonzalez.
Yes!
And it's obligatory Brendan just celebration. If anything, this has been the pinnacle of now a year's worth of work for Raquel Gonzalez. And so it's amazing to see how much she's evolved and changed in the year plus since aligning herself with Dakota Kai. But as far as the match, Raquel used her power early. Really, from the bell, she was really trying to force her way with Io Shirai. Even though Io was trying to kind of move out of the way and really used her speed and her high flying to trying to stop Raquel, there was always a roadblock. There was always a wall that Io kept hitting. And that was named Raquel Gonzalez.
It's her back.
Yeah, it's her. Yes, that's true. I mean, there was a great segment when Raquel and Io they were outside of the ring, and Io did what she meant to do last week with Zoe Stark, and she was able to drive Io Shirai's shoulder into the ring post. And then before that, the moonsault by Io was again so perfect, and I love both her moonsaults and her crossbodies are my favorite things to watch. And then we did see a moment where Raquel she did catch Io Shirai on the top rope as she was trying to kind of walk her way to the center, but grabbed her and was trying to get to the choke slam, but Io Shirai really did a cool counter and rolled into the crossface, which I thought was so great. And then eventually they made it back outside of the ring, and then we had the picture all over Twitter where Io Shirai was on top of the Stand and Deliver skull and did a big crossbody onto Raquel.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was really
crazy awesome.
Special, yeah.
It just always.
So what I liked about that is that felt more natural. Like a lot of the times you'll see these people that their thing is they want to do big crazy stunt dives, and there'll be a big weird setup to it, or long awkward pause while they climb and lose their footing or whatever. But it was, you blink it, you miss it, she was at the top of the skull, and then all of a sudden she's flying off the skull. And there was, the natural break afterwards where both of them looked like they might be dead.
Yep.
But, but I didn't at any point think, well, that looked fake, or that looked like Raquel was waiting too long, or any of that.
Because that was almost what Io had to do, because Raquel is so strong that the only thing that Io had in her arsenal was, utilizing her body to keep throwing herself on her. That's why she did the moonsault. That was her second crossbody by the time that at that point of the match. So I think it was more of a strategy.
And that's what it felt like. Yeah,
that's what it felt as well. When they did get back into the ring, though, Raquel managed to hit a huge lariat and then the final choke slam, which, before that, she did a choke slam on the outside of the ring, on the ground, which seemed like it hurt. And when they got back in, she hit the lariat and then a choke slam, which you could hear. You could tell that when she hit that final choke slam in the middle of the ring, that was it. And she got the 3 count and became the new NXT Women's Champion. I mean, thoughts on
incredible. Yeah, it was an incredible match. It left you out of breath when you were done watching it. Like, it was I mean,
I was so excited on this. I mean, people were asking online what was your favorite match of the night, and I mean, overwhelmingly the Walter match was winning, and I'm like, but I felt like this match really rivaled the raw emotion and the intensity, and I was there for this match in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's going to be a match of the year contender at this point, even though it's still fairly early. I could absolutely see a match of the year. But you're right, the Walter Tommaso Ciampa match too. I myself wasn't going to pay that close attention to it, but I couldn't help it.
It's hard not to,
That was really, really good. And one thing I noticed that both Raquel and Walter did in their pins is really use their body weight to try and get on top of their opponents, which I really appreciated, because it is one of those things that as the bigger person, you need to leverage more often. And even though I saw it in both matches, it made sense why they did it.
Yep. Especially since both of them were against people that were too persistent. If you didn't cover them just right, they were going to kick out anyway. So it made it feel more real and more, like there's on that pin, even though Raquel hit the choke slam, I was still like worried. Oh, she's going to kick out.
Mm-hmm. And, That's what I thought too. That's what I thought too. So, yes, a new age in the NXT Women's Division. Raquel beating the third longest reigning NXT Women's Champion, which they did talk about on commentary for quite some time, and they've mentioned it multiple times. So, beating someone who's been fairly unbeatable, who's gone through a majority of the roster, this is huge. It's huge, and it's a big turning point in the women's division. So, a big congratulations to Raquel Gonzalez. I love that there was a fun photo of her and Santos Escobar after she won, and it was just one of those things, especially too as Latinos, like, it just makes you so proud.
Yeah,
very
Loved
cool.
It. Speaking of Santos, in the opening match of night 2, we had the NXT Cruiserweight Championship unification match. Ladder match, Santos Escobar versus Jordan Devlin. And, this one, for me, it was the Spanish Flies. And the fact that Jordan Devlin was the one initiating those Spanish Flies, I have to give credit to Jordan Devlin. He really took some chances here. Not only did he do that, but he did a crazy moonsault off a ladder. So he was more of a high flyer than Santos Escobar. But I think it was because Santos was a lot more intentional and strategic, and that is why he's been one of the longest reigning, if not at this point, one of the longest reigning cruiserweight champion in history. We did see, we talked about it earlier in the tag match, where was Santos going to be involved? Not so much there, but we did see Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde coming down right as Jordan Devlin was about to reach for the titles. And they attacked Devlin and created enough of a distraction. And this is no DQ, so there wasn't anything that could be done.
Yeah, but, except send out more refs, which is what they did. So
yes.
Yeah.
And then as far as the final moments, they were both on top of two ladders, very close to in the grips of both titles. And then Santos headbutted Jordan Devlin off the ladder, and he fell through another ladder. And he was able to get the win, take the two titles, and he is your unified NXT Cruiserweight Champion. So justice is still being served. I remember screaming at my phone as I was watching this. Agárralo, take it. Just grab it, because he did have some moments where he just kind of looked up once he's
really casual about it.
Yes. But I also noticed that the fans seemed to enjoy him. The boos were coming to Jordan Devlin, and at the end of the match, his son came out, and he had his son wear his mask and, one of the belts. So it felt very face-ish, which was kind of a surprise.
Despite the fact that he worked heel through the whole match.
Yeah. So I was kind of confused. But the ladder match was great. Was it one? It's hard to compete in ladder matches within NXT. There's been so many, and as you guys noted in the chat, the commentary kept playing up. It is the first ladder match ever for the Cruiserweight Championship. Yes, So I had a lot of expectations to set up, and even the way that Shawn Michaels came in, the weeks prior to set it up, like it had a lot of high expectations set forth. Was it out of the water? No, not necessarily, but not because of lack of effort. I think it's just because it's the expectations were set very high, but we do now have a distinct unified champion. Yep. You know who it is, and that is Santos Escobar.
And Devlin's recognizing on social media that he lost. So, it is a thing at this point. One of the things to your point about Phantasma being more grounded and tactical was that impacted the flow of the match. Like, the ladder matches have been evolving at a crazy pace over the past few years. You have a lot of weird ladder structures getting built for no discernible reason, and then people falling through them and coming back up to do spots. Yeah. You didn't have that. You didn't have, you had a ladder set up on top of a turnbuckle, I think was the most sophisticated ladder use that I saw. I can't remember anything worse than that. And that felt natural and tactical.
Yes, very true. I think Jordan Devlin did some great things. It was towards the beginning of the match when he first pulled out a ladder from underneath the ring. When Santos, did the baseball slide out, Jordan just pulled that ladder in to hit Santos where he knew he was going to be. So I absolutely agree. It was more practical usage of ladders in this match.
Yeah, and so that's going to make it different for some people. For me, that made it better than most of the ladder matches I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. But I don't know. I have to really think on it to decide if I think it's one of the classic all-time ladder matches. It's it's hard to compare to that Intercontinental match that really introduced most people to ladder matches.
It's hard. But I do think, and what commentary did also play up, is that Santos has really done, and Jordan Devlin as well, but I think primarily Santos has done a fantastic job of elevating the Cruiserweight Championship, where now, we didn't get the Cruiserweight Championship on takeovers, hardly ever.
Nope.
Yeah, true.
And now it's more of a main staple. I hope it remains this way. I hope the Cruiserweight Championship does not get neglected again, and it just gets bypassed for something else. Because it is an NXT title.
Yeah, it being an NXT title now, it's less likely to happen. That is nothing against the 205 product, but there's considerably less visibility for 205, making it easier for people to accidentally forget about it. But because it's an NXT product now, there's a fan base that is going to want to see it. I I just want to once again go again with, I love that Phantasma's son was there because he's talking about this online and other things. It's about it. He keeps saying it's about legacy. Family. It's about Lucha Libre. It's about family. Obviously his father couldn't be there. He's got responsibilities, but they're showing comparisons to that happening to him in AAA, where it was grandfather, father, and son doing that. That is something that continues to keep me enthusiastic about all of Legado del Fantasma. So I really wanted to shout that out too.
Absolutely agreed. Fun match, and yes, El Emperador de Lucha Libre is still campeón. So I'm happy. I'm a happy campeón. Up next, real quick, we did have the NXT Women's Tag Titles defended. Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon defended them against The Way. Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae had an awesome spot with a Tower of Doom led by Indy Hartwell, utilizing her strength and her size to help support everyone on that. This is also where we saw that reckless abandonment of Shotzi Blackheart and giving us a scary moment when she dove in between the ropes and kind of overshot her target and landed on her head and neck towards the bottom of the barricade / floor. So it's moments like that makes you say, gosh, Shotzi, I'm scared. You scare me. But
she's a scary lady.
She scared me, but she was okay. And then even Ember Moon dived after that as well. And then the match ended with a double eclipse from Ember Moon, and then a diving senton for Shotzi to pin Indy Hartwell, I believe. And so that is, again, seeing Shotzi is in this dynamic with her and Ember has been great. I think it's a perfect pairing. Again, Shotzi still sometimes scares me with that reckless abandonment, but that is always her style and her aesthetic. My hope is that they move on from this and they have some new contenders come into play in the future. So for what it is. Now, I do want to mention that both nights we did have promo packages featuring a new woman who's going to be on the roster. Same dog that we saw last week, which alludes to Ty Valkyrie, but it looks like she will be getting a new name in Frankie Monet. We didn't see her face, but we saw a lot of, hints as to, Frankie Monet being Ty Valkyrie.
We saw famous dog and we saw fur boots. I mean, it could still be Tyler Breeze. But...
yeah, it could, but likely not. So we will see next Tuesday when NXT airs. But it does look like we do have a new name for Ty Valkyrie.
Yeah, therein is one of the nitpicks I mentioned at the beginning. I went on record, I believe it was last week. I said I thought she was a big enough star, and here we are. So they're rebranding her as Frankie Monet, most likely. And first off, I'm not a fan of the name, but also,
I think it will grow on us.
Maybe. I mean, unfortunately it's a pretty deep hole because the name should be Taya Valkyrie or Taya freaking Valkyrie, but you know. Yeah.
Very true.
Anyway.
Yeah. It'll be an uphill battle. We'll see. I think hopefully her entrance in NXT will be a big difference maker. I feel like, I mean, going back to what we saw at the end of night one, we are now in a big transitional state in NXT in the women's division. You think about all the shades of when different champions have passed through, Io took the helm technically from Charlotte, but more from Rhea Ripley. And Rhea took the helm from Shayna Baszler, who took the helm from Ember Moon, who took the helm from Asuka, and so who took it from Bayley, who took it from just a really, really long lineage. And so now it's, now it's Raquel's reign. And having building up contenders like Zoe Stark, who was on the pre-show against Toni Storm, like a debuting Frankie Monet, means that we're getting a new age of the NXT women's division. And even though sometimes it feels like a slump, they've always risen to the occasion. And I don't see any difference in this iteration.
No, not at all. And they said it in promos. They're calling it out. This is the best women's division. So you can't have too much of a slump when you're at the top anyway. Yep. So.
And at this point, they're going to stay remaining at the top because, like we said, AEW's being messy right now. Raw and SmackDown is sports entertainment. Ring of Honor is not even bringing anything till the summer, so they got time. They're
the only ones that have a chance to even reach for that brass ring.
Yeah, Impact's is I mean,
they could recover something.
NXT got Taya, which means they got most of the best Impact Women's division.
Yeah.
Anyway. Though Impact is teasing a new knockout coming out. I don't know if it's a new or returning knockout, but still, they have a hole left from Taya. Anyways, as I digress. The main event of night 2, it was the NXT Championship on the line, Karrion Kross versus Finn Balor. And the promo package to this was beautiful. The way that the entrances were done were awesome. I loved the black and white effect of Karrion Kross, and Finn Balor in particular put a big X on his shoulder, which, man, I thought was really pretty powerful, because Finn's been in the same situation as Karrion, but they've addressed it very differently. It was interesting with Finn kind of smiling a lot and enjoying kind of the frustration that Karrion Kross was facing. Of course, slow pace. That's how Karrion Kross's match start. You slowly work and then you build up. But Karrion used a lot of his pure strengths in delivering some big lariat clotheslines and, of course, utilizing his judo background for some chokeholds. One of the more interesting parts of that match was when Finn got a big 2 count, almost the win when he landed the coup de grace, but then Karrion reversed that into a chokehold. And so that too was like, Karrion is just so stealthy. And even for someone his size where you think you always can see him, he'll pull out things that you just don't expect.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the match, we saw Karrion deliver some multiple forearms to the back of Finn's neck and head while Finn Balor was down. And then as the match ended, we saw the big forearm again, which now makes me understand why we don't see that Saito suplex as the finishing maneuver anymore. They've really been playing up that big forearm to the back of the head as the finishing maneuver for weeks now, and it makes sense now that I see the end of that match. But Karrion Kross gets the pin and once again becomes NXT champion.
I like it as a finisher. It's a non-standard finisher. So it doesn't look like it's just another generic big move, but because you can see through the whole match him beating that region, suplexes landing people there, the chokes, all the chops to that back of the neck area. You can really see how that is what he is setting up for, is to knock somebody out by hitting them in the back of the head. And I love that Finn Balor was willing to make it look like he was completely out too.
He did. And I would say co-main event because we did have Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole after that. So that's, that was a co-main event, which kind of didn't surprise me, but kind of surprised me. But yeah, I mean, Karrion Kross is now exactly back where he left off at the end of the year, or the beginning of this year. Mm-hmm. Time is a weird thing.
With a very important win under his belt too.
Yes. Beating, Finn Balor is a huge career milestone. And that leaves a lot of people wondering, is Finn going to stay in NXT? Is he going to come back to, Raw or SmackDown? I mean, this is WrestleMania weekend, and what happens after WrestleMania? The Raw after WrestleMania. That is usually one of the biggest, surprise points of the year, where people make returns or people get called up, quote unquote. It wouldn't surprise me if we see Finn back on Raw or SmackDown. Raw would be a good place for him. A lot of it will depend on the ending of the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania, but it's also very possible we'll see someone from NXT pop up on Raw or SmackDown next week.
Yeah. No, actually, we probably will see some people get juggled around. Maybe some of the women too, but I mean, yeah, like you say, that Monday after is usually, if there were a new season of WWE, the Monday after Raw is the first episode of the new season. So yeah.
Absolutely true. That's a great comparison.
Good point. So both nights of NXT Stand and Deliver are available on the Peacock Network on the app. So go ahead and check it out. There was some interesting nuances with some of the audio and things like that, but overall a pretty smooth sailing for NXT. Hopefully those stay intact for WrestleMania this weekend, but another fantastic takeover. And like you said, Brendan, too, not only is this going to be a new season for Raw and SmackDown, it's a new season for NXT.
Yep.
You have new tag champions, new women's champion, new NXT champion.
And they already have put a lampshade on it. You're going to see new talent too, because we're going to see Frankie.
Yeah.
Yep.
So at the very least.
Yep.
I mean, they've had a bunch of huge signings announced, so they could have a whole bunch of people come in.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, don't forget, you could also check out luchacentral.com for all of the results from NXT Stand and Deliver in case you missed out on it. Dusty, go ahead and lead us into this week in Lucha Libre history.
Yeah, that's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera for information, birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos, and even more. And it's all about Lucha Libre, and it's all free at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week I chose April the 6th, 2019, and the New Japan Ring of Honor G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden, which was a big deal in and of itself. It was one of the first non-WWE shows to run in Madison Square Garden, and it was just cool. But the match that was highlighted is Dragon Lee defeating Bandito and Taiji Ishimori for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Like, this is an insanely great match. This is the match that really vaulted Dragon Lee to the top of New Japan's list, and 2020 really would have been his year if it hadn't been for COVID and the travel restrictions. His momentum may not be moving at the same velocity it felt like it would after this match, but he's easily headed to the top of the list again soon. New Japan still seemed to be very high on him, and after seeing this match, it's really not hard to understand why. There's such a high bar set for luchadors that get regular work in Japan, and these are the guys that are just pole vaulting over that bar. Like, the bar doesn't exist for Bandito and Dragon Lee. Bandito was really the MVP of the match, even though Dragon Lee won, but I have no complaints. It was a fantastic, fast-paced match with a lot of speed and a lot of power mixed in, and it just made something really special and amazing for this match, and I encourage everybody to check it out. It was a match of the day, so you'll be able to find it at luchacentral.com, and go check it out. And anyway, what did you pick this week, Brendan?
This week I also chose April the 6th, but I went all the way back to 1993 when Los Brazos, this is the combination of Brazo de Oro, Legends of Lucha Libre Superstar Brazo de Plata, and El Brazo won the CMLL World Trios Championship, defeating Los Infernales, Satanico, Pirata Morgan, and MS1. And this was at Arena Coliseo in Mexico City. So again, this is well after trios had been established as one of the predominant traditions in Lucha Libre. But these are some of the teams that really helped it stay elevated and stay in the consciousness. Brazos are all legends, despite the fact that only one of them has signed with the Legends of Lucha Libre line, which, you can only do so much. And then you have the other side. You have Satanico, who is an absolute legend in the sport, and Pirata Morgan, who is still going, and no slouch on the legend either. So just great. Unfortunately, this is a period of time where there's not a lot of footage, and because there wasn't a lot of tape trading coming out of Mexico. I'm sure if you went to the right place and put enough money on the table, you could find bootleg copies of this stuff. But that's the only way really to find it right now. But yeah, super interesting historic match. I just wanted something. Last week I went a little too modern for my normal taste, so I just went. And I feel old calling 1993 way back, but that's that's the reality at this point. Miranda, what did you go with this week?
I picked April 5th, 2009, and this was WrestleMania 25, when Rey Mysterio won the WWE Intercontinental Championship for the first time after beating JBL. And the match itself isn't necessarily a banger because it was only about 21 seconds, which was very, very quick. But I think it was the context and the story behind it and everything related to it that for me was important. One, this is WrestleMania week, of course, and we have to highlight a WrestleMania match. WrestleMania 25, too, being a pretty big WrestleMania in and of itself. But this was something that happened after JBL accepted Rey Mysterio's challenge for the Intercontinental Championship. And with this win, Rey Mysterio became a Triple Crown champion, which was a very, very big milestone for many, many wrestlers, at that time being the 21st wrestler who was a Triple Crown champion. And really the fact that this match ended in such a quick time, a lot of people know, Daniel Bryan losing his match in about that same amount of time, I think a little bit less, being a pivotal moment in his career. For Rey, instead of being on the losing end, he was on the winning end.
Yeah.
And the fact that the company really put the support behind him, it also was pretty big as far as JBL's promo afterward, where he quit and left for some time. So that too was kind of a big surprise to fans because at that point too, JBL had been kind of a company favorite. Afterwards, Rey Mysterio was drafted to SmackDown. So that, with that, the Intercontinental Championship, went to SmackDown for the first time since 2002. So, we also saw, Rey in kind of the infamous Joker gear, which was pretty cool to watch. It's, again, Rey Mysterio having a lot of comic book influences. That one was in particular really, really cool to see. And of course, winning the match with the frog splash, as a lot of fans know, that tribute to Eddie, and, just having that tinge of him in that match, especially against JBL, was really cool. So, if you have a minute, you can watch this match, but I think too, it's more of the significance and another big milestone for the career of Rey Mysterio. Not so much for JBL.
Not a milestone for that guy.
I mean, a milestone, not a good one necessarily, but yeah, that's what I chose for, this week in Lucha Libre history. So, don't forget, of course, all of this can be found at luchacentral.com. But Brendan, what else can our listeners find on luchacentral.com?
Well, if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's time to do it, really right now. You can listen to me read this to you while you're going to luchacentral.com. LuchaCentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get to all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events will be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards. seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And I'm never, ever, ever going to stop making you realize this. It's all free. That's the best price.
Free, you say?
Yes, free, I do say. I mean, you don't need to spend your stimulus checks on this. Just go there. Enjoy your Lucha Libre content, your news, your reviews, pictures taken by some of the best photographers. Hopefully we can get some of those pictures from Eat Like a Luchador that didn't make it into the book up on the webpage because they're amazing. Yeah. And, it's free. Go to luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
So what do we got up next for news? Looking at the rundown. CMLL.
Yeah.
I pulled CMLL because I had no real news this week. They are still building to the anniversary pay-per-view, but no announcements that I have as of this recording.
Okay. Good to know. So this week we have an interesting combination of news. It's a AAA/MLW news update, because there is a combination of news between the two companies. So Dusty and I are going to tag team this. I'm going to have Dusty go first because he understands more of the context. And as we both know, I kind of blumble around a little bit. So I'm going to be your hype man, Dusty. I got your back.
Okay.
I got you. You can do the hot tag if you need to. But Dusty's going to start us off.
Yeah, the main takeaway is that Laredo Kid is the AAA Cruiserweight Champion because AAA says so, and that's the bottom line. An insider at AAA told Dave Meltzer at the Wrestling Observer that AAA's digital team had not acknowledged the change and therefore it wasn't official. However, that's not quite true. As Lucha Blog has pointed out, it was acknowledged on Twitter at the very least, most likely Facebook too, but due to the blockage and location, it's hard for US to tell. But probably both. And he makes no judgment call as to whether Meltzer's source was outright lying to Dave or if they were simply misinformed. But that's the gist of it. AAA says that they didn't sanction the title change and it happened anyway, so they're not acknowledging it. Like, I don't understand how this happens. With Leo Rush working with and for AAA now, why couldn't they have done something when he was there for Triple Mania, taped a match, or taped the finish to a match and just lied to us? I mean, or even just lied to us anyway.
And also, MLW's shows are pre-taped as well. So if it wasn't supposed to happen that way, then why didn't they just, why was that the final product that we saw on MLW as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just so strange, and there are so many questions about this, and it's one of the least professional things I've seen in a while in wrestling. I guess they just assumed nobody would care, but obviously fans care and want to know, and then instead of coming up with something sensical, they just doubled down, and
yeah.
It's strange, yes. I mean, to Leo's credit, has stated that he would face Laredo Kid again, and MLW has kind of teased that in their news coverage, will we see a rematch? And I don't know how much is story and how much is real at this point. But yeah, there's a lot of holes as to, how this could happen, because now it wasn't like it was in front of a live audience. It wasn't that they couldn't have retaped it. Leo Rush already has a relationship with AAA. There's just a lot of holes to poke in this story. So, we will see. As just a heads up, in MLW this week, they didn't have a new episode of Fusion. They had an older version of MLW Underground. But next week, we will see Gino Medina challenge Richard Holiday for the IWA Caribbean Championship. And I believe next week we will also see Mil Muertes face Hammerstone for the Openweight Championship. So MLW is coming back next week with some pretty solid matches.
Stacked episode.
Yes.
Stacked right there.
And, speaking of, MLW was kind of smart. They knew that, I am sure one of the reasons they decided not to air a new episode was because of, what we were already going to see with NXT Takeover. So kind of smart on their move, because even the ratings and the numbers for this week, NXT did beat AEW in viewership. So smart move by MLW. A company that maybe still, beyond their control, but still had to run is Impact Wrestling, who ran their first Thursday episode this week. They did try to tempt viewers by booking a 6-man tag of Rich Swann, Eddie Edwards, and Willie Mack versus Kenny Omega, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson. In that match, Swann almost got a win on Kenny Omega. Swann used the Phoenix Splash on Kenny Omega, and right before the 3 count, Don Callis pulled Kenny out of the ring. But Rich Swann did ultimately get the win using the Phoenix Splash on Carl Anderson. So we still are getting some teasers or some what ifs going into April 25th Rebellion, when we will see Rich Swann face Kenny Omega to a title versus title match. But
I'm sorry, I just have to slow down. Kenny Omega actually wrestled on Impact Wrestling.
He did. Yes.
Amazing.
It was another 6-man tag match, though, so nothing that we haven't seen. This is now, I think, the 3rd time that's happened. Or 2nd time, at least.
So it's more than once, but I mean, even still, it's just amazing to me, because the deal felt really one-sided so far, but
Yes. Well, it still is, because the only person from Impact outside of Private Party that have come on is Kenny Omega. So, whereas Anderson and Gallows are pretty much on AEW television every week.
Well, we also don't know if there were more Sammy Guevara situations where storyline didn't work out, or transportation, or something else, and they just went with other people.
That's true. But some interesting announcements that came out of Impact this week. Luke Gallows is going to be facing Black Taurus this Saturday at Hardcore Justice. So that is on the Impact Plus app. That also happens to be the same day as WrestleMania, but to see 2 men of that size face each other, especially with Black Taurus, how agile he is, it's against someone, of the size of Luke Gallows, that will be a very interesting matchup. But I just don't doubt there's going to be any eyes on it. Also announced, we are going to get a triple threat match for the X Division Championship at Rebellion. Champion Ace Austin will face TJP and Josh Alexander for the X Division Championship. So that's a story they've been building for quite some time. Ace Austin won the title from TJP. Josh Alexander's kind of been in the title scene for quite some time since the North broke up. So I think this will be very, very interesting. Josh Alexander, I think, in his singles run has been fantastic. So I'm looking forward to this match. But that is it with Impact Wrestling this week. Again, Hardcore Justice is this Saturday, April 10th on the Impact Plus app. And Rebellion, their big pay-per-view, is going to be on April 25th. And with that, that's the end of this week's episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Thank you all so much for listening to our show. We greatly appreciate it. Make sure you go to luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. And you can follow Lucha Central on social media. At Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at Lucha Central.com on Twitter. You can also follow Lucha Central on YouTube, where you could see lots of cool content, interviews like the Cassandro interview that we referenced earlier, lots of Expo Lucha stuff from all the virtual events that have happened, and lots of cool matches and content that you can't find anywhere else on Lucha Central's YouTube page. While you're at it, why don't you follow us on social media? Dusty, where can our listeners find you?
I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy, and I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am the numbers 321 T-shirt guy. So 321 T-shirt guy. T-shirt guy is all spelled out. So 321 T-shirt guy. Facebook, Instagram. I'm even looking at it at this moment. It's amazing. Twitter, which is what I was looking at through the entire show. If you want to get a hold of me fast, Twitter is the way to go. I will once again mention that I might be Miranda's official inbox over on Twitter.
You are. Just because no one's used it yet doesn't mean that it still doesn't happen. So I put a challenge out there to people. If you want to send me a message through Brendan's Twitter, do so that we don't become liars. You could, within reason. Don't send those bad things. We're not about that life. And Brendan will rat you out. So don't even try it.
I totally will.
Yes. And as Brendan mentioned earlier in the show, if you are associated with the Lucha Libre promotion, if you are a luchador, if you're a fan, if you are a promoter that has Lucha Libre content, make sure you reach out to Brendan with matches, and you may be featured on a future segment of the Indie Roundup. So if you'd like to get mentioned, send that content over to Brendan. Again, it's at Brendan's discretion what is going to be mentioned. So just, buyer beware. But we all here support independent wrestling and independent wrestlers. So we want to do our part to highlight matches and promotions that are running safe shows, but also fantastic Lucha Libre matches. And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at the # Miranda, # spelled out. If you are listening to this show on one of your favorite podcast streaming platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Podbay, iHeart, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. So you subscribe and get notifications every time a new episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast drops. You give us a 5-star rating and you leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. Give us feedback. Let us know what you like and what you don't like. Future topics that we could cover. Maybe things we shouldn't cover again. I don't know unless you tell us. So make sure you let us know, whether it's through our social medias or through your favorite podcast streaming platform.
Or YouTube.
Or YouTube, yeah. Yes. Yeah, we check these things out, so please feel free to let us know. We're happy to take that feedback, and we're also just always looking forward to hearing from fans. We like to give shots at the end of episodes as well, so if you leave us a comment or feedback, we'll mention it at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. And again, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. We will be back next week. So for Dusty Murphy and Brendan Barr, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you so much, and we will be back next week.